You're watching Mick and T's Sports Report on CHCO Television. And now, here's two guys that still collect hockey trading cards, Evan and Joe.
Welcome to Mick and T Sports Report here on CHCO-TV. I'm Joe Ticotsky down in New Haven, Connecticut.
I'm Evan McFarlane in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, Canada.
And this is episode number 15 for us. There you go. So if you're in Spain, it would be quince. If you're in Germany, it would be 15. And if you're in Italy, Brandon, this would be episode quindici. I think that's correct. So once again, we have two really good guests this episode. But to start out, I think the headline story, we want to feature Mittens. And everybody knows our man Bernie Sanders has become the meme for Mittens, but we found him in certain places we didn't know. So there he is on I'll move off to the side here. There he is on the wharf in St. Andrews. He was seen there with his mittens staying warm. There he is on Minister's Island. He made a guest visit there where it's always cold in the winter. He stopped in at our camp on the last day. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. There he is in front of the Algonquin. He made a guest appearance there. There he is waiting for the Raptors outside Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. And they even found him in Flin Flon outside Mugsy's Deli. What do you know? The guy gets around. But I think actually, no, he was on our first episode. I don't know if you remember that. He snuck in there. He made a guest appearance. By the time people see this, they'll be so sick of the Bernie meme. One more. There he is on the dating game. That was a little bit before your time. And these were all taken the week before the playoffs began. And since this episode will air after the Super Bowls ended, you'll be able to see how our guest prognosticators did. So I'll start out with what a few of the people said. Cabby Richards from Bleacher Report and Scott Lechterman from Cabin Radio and Yellowknife both had the Packers over the Ravens. How's that one looking?
Stinker.
Daniel Court from Milk River, Alberta, who was our guest on one of the shows, had the Bills over the Packers. No dice. And Leo McPherson and Mike from the AD at St. FX and Mike Ganter from the Toronto Star both had the Packers over the Bills. So they didn't do too well. What do you have out of the predictions there?
I got a couple here. John Pearson from Channel 8, New Haven, half right. He's got the Packers over the Chiefs. So it's not happening, but at least he's got a team in there.
No, I think he had the Bills over the Bucks.
Yes, he did. I was looking at the wrong one. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. So he had the Bills over the Bucks. So he got half.
Messed up with the very knowledgeable deputy mayor of St. Andrews who knows so much about football, who had Packers over the Chiefs. So that's Brad.
Brad.
Yeah.
Who else?
Bruce Hallahan from the Daily Gleaner in Fredericton had the Chiefs over the Packers. So he's alive, kind of.
He's still. I love that name, the Daily Gleaner. It's my favorite newspaper name.
And I guess myself, I had the Packers over the Chiefs. I thought this might have been Rodgers' year to finally do it, but he's continued to do what they do every year and just get out early.
Yeah. Well, that's actually, we do have one. I think there's one more prediction here. Oh, yes. Who's our old friend of the show?
Oh, what do you got, Marv?
Marv Albert. Yes. He had his prediction, so I will read it. I was going to go with the Washington football team, but was then told they go by WTF, and I said, no obscene acronyms on this show. Oh, WFT. Sorry about that. My bad, as the kids say. Then I'll go with the New York Giants. Nope, they didn't make the playoffs because of that damn Sunfeld. Okay, I'll go with Russ Wilson and the Seahawks in the NFC. Let Russ cook, as they say. No dice. But in the NFC, I'll go with the kooky mustache of Andy Reid and his fine quarterback, Patrick Mahomes.
Who?
Patrick Mahomes.
You mean Pat Mahomes?
Well, maybe that's how it's pronounced up in Canada, hockey boy. Marv says Chiefs 57-4. Yes. Okay, Marv.
Sounds like a burner.
We were going to do Love the Leaf, and Evan was going to quiz me on the provinces, but we'll push that to our next episode so I can have a bit more time to study.
Yeah.
A couple little mistakes we made the last episode. One that I made, I pronounced the town of Plaster Rock, New Brunswick as Plastic Rock. And when Evan was talking about the chicken bones for Ganong, he said they started in 1985 when it was actually 1885. But
Just a little difference.
what's 100 years between friends? Let's move on to the music spotlight. Evan, what do you have?
Yeah, so believe it or not, I actually picked a band this time that's relevant and still playing shows. So I picked the Town Heroes, high-paced rock band out of Halifax, known for their music and being very entertaining during their live shows.
And we do have a picture of them somewhere, the Town Heroes. There they are.
There you go.
Got to have a beard to be in the band if you're a male. And I will go with a group from Halifax called Neon Dreams. We were told to start appealing to a younger audience. They were the 2020 Juno Award winners, which is sort of Canada's version of the Grammys, as Breakthrough Group of the Year. Their latest album is called The Happiness of Tomorrow. And I'm going to see if we can get one of their songs to play. This was their first hit. It was called Marching Bands. Not bad. Okay. That's Neon Dreams. Coming up next, we interview a longtime Canadian curler whose career includes winning an Olympic gold medal. You're watching Mick and T's Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Welcome back to Mick and T's Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Today's guest is one of the world's top curlers and a 2006 Olympic gold medalist. Let's welcome Mark Nichols from Newfoundland. How's it going today, Mark?
Good, thank you. How are you guys doing?
No complaints, going well. For many of our American viewers and others who don't know much about this great sport, let's start out with a quick, for lack of a better term, what I call it curling for dummies. So I will ask and you will receive in return. So I'll hit you with a few questions. What are the positions on a curling team?
Well, four players typically, a lead, a second, a third, and a skip. So everyone throws 2 rocks per end, throwing in pairs and alternating between teams.
And what position are you on the team?
I play third position, so I'll throw rocks 5 and 6, kind of the 2 before the skip would throw the last 2 at the end.
Now, is that something that you try to specialize in, or could you potentially play one of the other positions?
I think you could typically play any other position. However, over the course of careers and stuff like that, you kind of gravitate towards something that suits you. Every position has kind of some characteristics where you're better suited. I've been pretty much a lifetime third, and it's been the position I've played. I've played in other positions, but third seems to suit me the best.
Okay. What's the weight of the stone?
We usually say just 40 pounds, but I think it's anywhere between 38 and 44, depending on how they're made, but 40 pounds roughly.
And how much does a stone cost typically, a high-end one?
Ooh, I wouldn't even be able to tell you what stones cost. We just, I wouldn't even be able to tell you.
Now, does each team, this may be a stupid question, does each team use their own in the competition, or is there like a game ball where, like in basketball, there's one that they use for the game?
No, so typically, I know when, I hear stories from way back when curling was first, getting going back in the early mid 1900s, teams used to travel around with their own set of stones. Now there's designated stones for certain competitions, like curling clubs. When they're open up to the public, they have their own set of stones. And when we go to different events on the World Curling Tour or the Briar and stuff like that, they have a designated set of stones that you would play with. If there's 4 sheets, then there's 8 sets of rocks. If there's 5 sheets, 10 sets of rocks, with usually some spare sets in case there's damage to any set of stones.
Okay, and how about the sweeping? I know people who have never watched it are like, what's with the broom and the guy yelling to everyone? Give us a quick explanation of that.
Well, basically, so the skip is in charge of the game. They're calling shots, and both sweepers, you sweep the rock to manipulate the trajectory, how much it will curl. So at times you will want the rock to run a little bit straighter to keep its line, or maybe go a little bit further. And so sweeping allows you to make the rock go, good sweepers 4-6 feet further than where it would actually end up with no sweeping. So good sweeper, and if it's really good ice, you might get a little bit more than that. So you're trying to manipulate the trajectory of the stone to where it's going to end up.
Okay, Evan.
Yeah, I guess with more present issues, Mark, with the coronavirus struggles this year, they've announced that they're going to do a bubble for all major curling events. Can you maybe give us a glimpse of what you think that's going to look like?
Yeah, right now we're in, the process of preparing, but it would be one hub city. Looks like Calgary is the spot we're going to end up. And they will run the Season of Champion events, Scotties, Briar, Canadian Mixed Doubles Championship. There's been an announcement about the World Championship there as well. Other events looking to kind of add into that to make it one large kind of continuous curling cycle of big events. And, it's needed, I think, for curling right now. We haven't had much of it in terms or anything right now. So to play some meaningful games and in some good competition against some good teams, I think would be great.
Now, when you won your gold medal, it was in the 2006 Olympics in Italy. At the start of those games, what type of chance do you think your team had?
I think our chances, going into it were very good. On the, we'd been fairly successful on the international stage. So going in, we knew we had a relatively good shot at a medal. What color that medal was, kind of depended on a number of things, how we handled the pressure, how well we were playing, that sort of thing. But I always felt like we knew we were playing well enough to give ourselves a chance to win that gold medal.
And is it true, I read somewhere, maybe it's not true, that for the gold medal game against Finland, they actually let schools out early in Newfoundland so they could get home to watch it?
Yeah, it was kind of a holiday here. It was a Friday, and I hear stories about, well, obviously schools were canceled. A lot of schools ended up bringing in projectors into their gymnasiums and had the kids watch the gold medal game there. Businesses kind of shut down or brought televisions into their lunch rooms or anything like that. From the stories I hear, and still hear them to the day, that basically the city here in St. John's, and I would assume all over the province, was like a ghost town because everyone was watching the game, and it was an early afternoon and into the evening, and then probably a late night for a lot of people who were celebrating.
That's great. Evan, you had a request for Mark before we wrap things up?
Absolutely. I think I'd like to see, and I think everyone else would like to see, but you got that gold medal handy on you?
I do. I don't break it out as much these days, but it's always nice. I pulled it out, and it's always nice to see it every now and then. It's right there for the camera.
Congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's got the Torino logo on there on the front. It's engraved 20th Winter Olympic Games in English, French, and Italian around the outside edges. And then it's specific and says men's curling on the back. Quite the neat design. I'm biased, obviously, because it's mine. But I like the donut design with the ribbon wrapped around it. So it's pretty cool.
So cool.
That is a keeper. He's Mark Nichols, world-class curler from Newfoundland. And about 1 year from now, we hope to be watching him in the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. Mark, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
After the break, we'll head up to Nunavut for another edition of Small Town Spotlight. You're watching Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. It's time for another edition of Small Town Spotlight here on Mick and T Sports Report. Since CHCO-TV is available on Bell Satellite throughout Canada, you can watch our show on Mondays, Wednesdays, or Friday nights if you live in Ladysmith, British Columbia, Tickle Cove, Newfoundland, or Westward Ho, Alberta. And as always, you can watch the show on Charlotte County Television's YouTube channel, where we hope you'll subscribe. For our 7th edition of Small Town Spotlight, we head to the Canadian territory of Nunavut, the newest and most northerly territory of Canada, having separated from the Northwest Territories in 1999. Let's welcome in David Ford, General Manager of the Jessie Oonark Center in Baker Lake and an Inuit art dealer for over 40 years. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you, Joe. A pleasure to be here.
First off, tell me what the temperature is today in Baker Lake.
Today, the temperature is minus 20 degrees Celsius. In Fahrenheit, I think it's about -4 Fahrenheit.
Not bad.
Today is a warm day, particularly warm. It's been -30, -40 for the past week, and the temperatures are going to drop later this week. So it'll be roughly -30 most of the week following this.
And how about the sunrise and sunset each day at this time of year about?
I know exactly because I got it here in front of me. The sun rose today at 10 o'clock and will set today at 3 in the afternoon.
Okay, so
we
solid
got
5
roughly
hours.
5 hours of daylight.
Now, Baker Lake, with a population of about 2,000, is located about 1,000 miles north of Winnipeg. But the old saying, you can't get there from here, certainly rings true. How would one get from Baker Lake to Winnipeg?
When we fly to Winnipeg, we fly from here, Baker Lake, to Chesterfield Inlet, and then on to Rankin Inlet, where we can get on a jet now. The jet service has only been for the last few years, but we can get on a jet in Rankin Inlet and fly directly to Winnipeg. Before that, we'd have to fly to Chesterfield, to Rankin Inlet, to Arviat, to Churchill, and then down to Winnipeg.
And how long are the shorter of those flights?
Each trip between each community is roughly an hour. So from here to Chesterfield is an hour, Chesterfield to Rankin is an hour, Rankin to Arviat is an hour, to Churchill an hour, and then 2 hours to Winnipeg from there. But now the jet from Rankin Inlet, we can board a jet in Rankin Inlet. It's about 2.5 hour flight to Winnipeg.
Okay. Tell us a bit about the Jessie Oonark Center. First, who she was and what we'd see if we visited the center.
The individual Jessie Unock was an artist from Baker Lake, was one of the most famous Inuit artists. She didn't come into Baker Lake. Prior to the 1960s, everybody lived on the land. They all lived in igloos and lived in skin tents. In the 1960s, the government brought everybody in off the land. There was a migration, changed with the caribou. People were starving. So they started bringing people into the community. Jessie Unock, her family, was one of the first people that came in the mid-60s. She was probably close to 60 years old at the time. and did nothing but live on the land and make clothing, up until that point. So when all the people came in off the land, the government had to find sources of income for them, employment, and they sent up a bunch of papers and pencils, and that's where the big art movement started in the north, in Nunavut. The people were very talented and worked with their hands their whole life. So in the 1960s, Jessie Unock got paints and pencils and paper and started a career that lasted to 1986, roughly 20 years. And she was a very prolific artist, and now her works are all over the world. The center here was named after her. Most of her children are elders now. Most of them have passed, and there's still a few that are still alive, but all of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren are all still alive, a huge family here in town. So the Jessie Unock Center is an art center. We buy and sell arts and crafts, everything from sculptures, drawings, tapestries, and hats and mitts and stuff that people make, and we resell them to the south and as well to other communities.
And David, before we started the show, was nice enough to walk me around the center with his laptop, and it's quite an operation. Very impressive. David, I always ask our guests on this segment every show to recommend a restaurant in the area, but you told me there are no restaurants, so we'll have to skip that part of the question. But you'd sent me a fascinating video clip of you fishing on the ice. About how much of the food that you eat during a year do you personally hunt or fish for?
Almost all of the meat that we eat, we try to hunt or fish for. Things are expensive here in the store, but we do buy potatoes and rice and everything else that you guys get in the south as well. But most of our diet here is either caribou meat or fish from the lake. In the lake, we have whitefish, Arctic char, and trout.
Okay, and what other types of meat besides the caribou?
Do we eat? Well, grizzly bear now and then. There's grizzly bears here, mostly in the springtime, and muskox. We have huge herds of muskox everywhere.
Amazing stories, David. I'd like to thank you so much for really being part of our small town spotlight. I can't say that I'll ever get up there, but any of our people that do have access, as you were telling me, it just sounds like a fascinating place to live. And you had mentioned, some of the advantages of living there, the clean water and the lack of pollution. And it sounds like just a fascinating lifestyle.
It is. It's a great place to bring up kids. There is a high school here, so kids get to go to high school now. A few years back, they had to go out to other communities to do high school.
Well, David, those are some tremendous stories about what I'm sure is a fascinating place to live.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being part of the Small Town Spotlight. And as I tell all of our guests, if you do ever make it to New York City or Boston, please make a side trip to Connecticut. And I would love to show you around our gorgeous state and take you out for some of our world famous thin crust pizza. You can't guarantee that there'll be caribou on there as a topping, but we'll see what we can do.
We can always bring some extra.
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you for being on the show, and stay warm, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Have a good day.
What a fascinating lifestyle David lives in Baker Lake, Nunavut. And in the background is some of the artwork of Jessie Oonark, who the center is named after. And she was one of the artists up there that sort of started the movement up there. And bright colors and interesting, great photos. A friend of mine that's an artist sent those. All right, let's go to the shout outs now.
Yeah, that curling interview got me all fired up with Mark, and I'm starting to miss my annual Bonspiel. So I'm going to give a shout out to my team that I usually go in these with, and guest of the show and friend of the show, Brad Henderson. our friend from Fredericton, Richard Arsenault, and my buddy Mike Bartlett. So hopefully when things get a little normal, we'll get that stellar team back on the ice.
Nice shout out. I am going to go with a guy that is near and dear to many people that were in, I don't know if you remember him. That's Ling. He was the owner of the Asian Fusion restaurant that used to be in St. Andrews, where Lumberjacks is now. He and his wife moved back to Toronto a few years ago, but his wonton soup got me through many a cold winter's night down on Water Street. And I also always got the 10% discount, which I later found out that everybody got, but I fell for that one. So that is Ling, and those are our shout outs for this episode. So believe it or not, it looks like we are about at the end of another episode here. So that's it for this edition of Mick and T Sports Report. I'm Joe in New Haven.
I'm Evan and here in New Brunswick, Canada.
Thanks to Patrick Watt and everyone at CHCO-TV in St. Andrews. We're trying to think of a good closing line for the show, but we've yet to do so. So I'll just say, insert closing catchphrase here, and we'll see you all next month. Thanks for watching. This is Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO-TV.